brain doesn't care about truth, it cares about familiarity. And with our brain, safety is in that which can be repeated. Neurologically, the brain treats repetition as evidence. So for years, if you spent repeating, money is hard, love doesn't last, I need proof before I can believe, success comes with struggle, your brain's not going to argue with that because its job is to protect you. So your mind is very familiar with that way of being, that way of identifying, that way of thinking. And it's not because this is all true, it's just what you've rehearsed, what you've been identifying with for such a long time based on your childhood experiences, based on your adult experiences, based on what you believe to be true now, and based on what you're perceiving. So when you're thinking that way and rehearsing that way, obviously it's going to outpicture in your 3D because that's what you believe to be true about yourself. So how do you detach from the 3D and stay in the desired state? That's everything we're jumping into this episode.
Hey lovelies, welcome back to another episode. If you're new here, I'm Tia.
And I'm Leah.
And we are manifestation sisters, helping you create the identity that makes life upgrades like money, wealth, success inevitable by becoming the wealthy woman at the centre of it all. So if the world is you pushed out, in the words of Neville Goddard, that doesn't mean your potential pushed out. That doesn't mean what do you desire to be pushed out. It means your assumptions pushed out, your inner repeated conversations, your inner beliefs, that which you dominantly feel pushed out, who you assume and say you are. That means your 3D isn't necessarily showing you your reality in a way that you think it should. It's showing you what you have rehearsed enough time to feel true to your subconscious. In other words, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. You get who you have programmed yourself to be, whether that is consciously or unconsciously. So more often than not, you'll find yourself being so attached to the 3D because it's reinforcing who you already say you are. You'll be obsessed with the 3D, constant checking, comparing. You're reinforcing the identity of it's not here yet. Some ways that you might do this is constantly searching for evidence, checking your bank balance, checking social media for validation, stalking your ex, your specific person, seeing where they are, what they're doing, constantly checking the scales, the mirror. All the ways to reinforce yourself that you are not yet this person. You do not yet have your manifestation. And therefore you're occupying that state of, I don't have it. Where is it? Why is it easier for them? It's a constant identification of separation. And you're using other people's success, external things on social media now more than ever as comparison and validation to the current belief system that you already have. Therefore, believing in the 3D as a way to dictate what you think, feel, and believe internally. But we know you are the cause and the 3D is the effect. So the reverse must happen. So here's the truth that helps you detach. The 3D is not real-time information. It's a reflection of who you have been, who you have said you are, who you observe yourself to be. So if you, and this is the truth I really want you to home in on, if you keep living your life based upon what you see, you'll keep living your life on who you have been, not who you choose to be from this point forward. In other words, if you keep observing lack, you'll keep manifesting and reflecting and feeling the cause of lack. If you keep observing and giving your attention to it not being here yet, you keep reinforcing it not being here yet. The 3D feels so real because you have observed that into reality. You are being the cause to the effect that you are now experiencing. And the loop will keep going around and around until you choose to break that cycle and detach from the 3D.
And I think detaching from the 3D is so important. We're not detaching from what we want, we're detaching from what we see. Mm-hmm. And making it our facts, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have to deny the senses. Looking for the validation outside is never going to bring you the satisfaction as more so than not going internally and giving yourself that internal satisfaction and not taking your cues from the 3D. And I think most people will get caught up on what they see, and I know this because it's one of the things that I've struggled with and sometimes still do struggle with. I'm not going to act like sometimes the 3D doesn't bother me, even though we know all this information. Sometimes I get pissed off by what I see, even though I know what I know, and that's okay, right? But what we do is when we see something, it's about bringing it back to us and putting ourselves back into that position of power. So detachment isn't pretending that the 3D doesn't exist. And we know the 3D is old news. We know the 3D essentially is an illusion, right? But you can acknowledge something, you can accept it, and then you could decide something different for yourself. Because, you know, it's being in the 3D, but not of the 3D, if that makes sense. It's like recognizing what the 3D is, but not making it who you are. It's refusing to let it dictate your identity because you're the one who decides who you are. So you can acknowledge a circumstance without bowing to it. And as Bashar says, circumstance doesn't matter, only state of being matters. So who you claiming to be? and we claim ourselves to be the person that has what we want. We claim ourselves to be the I am, right? I am this, I have this is who I am. And we keep returning to that as much as we can, even if we fall out or we see something we don't like. No, that's not my truth. This is who I am. It's a constant decision and returning back to who you're now choosing to be. So your identity doesn't depend on circumstances outside of you. It depends on who you're choosing to be. When you keep deciding that you are a certain version of yourself and you're anchored in that identity more dominantly, your 3D will start to rearrange itself and reflect a new version of what now is in alignment to your preferred, because it's just you. You are the cause and the 3D is the effect, as we said. It's about you deciding now, okay, I see what I see, accept it, fine. I'm not going to fucking let it dictate what I'm going to have going forward.
That is that identity anchoring that we always speak about. Like, you've chosen who you are, who that version of you is, and you don't move and flip-flop and change because you're getting an unfavorable 3D circumstance. How do you detach without pretending? We hear a lot of like, just be delusional, just pretend you are this version. But for a lot of people, it comes down to knowing you're not ignoring it. You're not pretending like these 3D circumstances don't exist. Like Leah said, you're refusing to let it override the identity that you have chosen for yourself. And this is where the power comes in, because it's knowing that you have a choice. In identity anchoring, it's knowing that you get to re-choose who you are daily. And this can be with a decision, this can be with a tool or technique, this can be taking your awareness and your focus off the problems that are currently going on, not through pretending that they're not there, but by shifting your focus on preferable, on the preferable of who you say you are, on the preferable of what you want, putting your focus and your energy into what you would rather experience, letting the unfavorable and the shitty circumstances consume you.
And it is returning to that decision. And this is what helps us getting to that knowing state, and which is often referred to as the Sabbath, right? And anything that helps us get to the state of knowing, that's where the sweet spot is. It's like you can do a tool or technique that helps you. It's all it's doing is getting you into a state of having what you want. But it's not required. I like to do tools and techniques sometimes, but I don't always need to do them. And I often just decide I'm a version of myself and live my life and go about my life deciding I'm that version. But then I'm reinforcing it sometimes with listening to affirmations. I like to do meditations and things like that, but that's not what's getting me at. It's who I'm being and who I'm deciding to be, and keep on returning to that. So that gets me into that knowing state, that Sabbath state of, this is done. This is mine. You know, you get into that mental rest of like, there's nothing more for me to do. I know this is mine. I'm going to live my life knowing that it's done. And anytime I waver, I bring myself back to, now this is mine. This is done. I already have it. And it is that conscious choice, is that conscious choosing. And when you're constantly choosing like that, you're putting yourself back into a preferable state.
Yeah.
You know, you're shifting your state of being into, this is done, it's mine. And you're feeling the relief of that. And it's like, if I already had my desire, how would I move throughout my day? Who would I be? How would I feel? How would I think? And often for me, landing in that feeling of relief, that satisfaction, the acceptance of this is mine, it's already done. And I'm not saying I don't waver. I'm not saying sometimes I don't have those days of spiral, because I do. But I know I can return myself back to my preferred state at any moment.
Yeah.
And that's the power.
Yeah, it's the returning back to the knowing. And the best way to describe this is like that inner knowing beyond the effort of, you don't feel like you need to keep doing, but rather who you are claiming, deciding to be in that moment. If we give this in the best way possible, of like, you don't yell at the mirror for your hair to change. You change your hair first. It's the same thing. You don't yell at the 3D. You don't yell at the favorable circumstance. I mean, you might process the emotion, but you don't keep yelling at the 3D in order for it to change. You change your focus, your attention, who you're choosing to be in that moment, not for a forcing, but for remembering, for an inner knowing that things always work out for you, for an inner knowing of, I always get what I want, for an inner knowing of, I don't need to control that circumstance. Actually, what I've decided is everything works out for me. What I've decided is I am loved. What I've decided is love is easy for me. What I've decided is money loves being around me. Like, all these ways, whether you're doing it through self-talk, whether through a tool or technique, whether through just shifting your interpretation of what you're observing, shifts your state. And that is the process of choosing. It's not trying to go out and control your 3D through effort, because that is you trying to change the effect with the effect. It's you bringing yourself back to the cause. You are the cause, and changing the cause so the effect changes. Therefore, the 3D changes. So ask yourself in that moment, if I am the cause, how am I dictating my power? How am I using my awareness? How am I using my choice to decide in this moment that I am the version of me that has what it is that I want?
Absolutely. And it is the power of those questions. And we've said it in previous videos as well, because that's you taking your power back. It really is. And no longer letting yourself be dictated on what's going outside of you. You can see it, but not be consumed by it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. It's seeing something for what it is, but not being consumed by it. Like, okay, I see what's going on. Because that's how I say to myself, okay, I've caused this.
See it.
Fine, take responsibility. Not to make myself feel bad for it, because sometimes we can live in that shame and guilt and anger of like, I can't believe I've done this. No, it's like, okay, I see what I've done. I forgive myself. I forgive the circumstance, but now I can change it. So I've caused it. I can change the effect. And I think that really helps you just shift back into a state of like, oh, okay, whew, like relief. You know what I mean? It's like, I can change this, and I know I'm the operant power, and I know I decide from here on out what I'm choosing to show up as. So we want you to kind of get clear on, and maybe even write it down for yourself. What does the woman who has it know today? Or what does she believe to be true about herself today? And then you live by that example, and you go about choosing that state of yourself every single day, and then your reality must reflect it.
And every time you bring yourself back to that decision and that choice of who you're claiming to be, you are practicing a different state. You are practicing and rewiring your subconscious into a new level of knowing, into a new I amness, into a new cause. So you start getting a different effect. Your inner observation leads, and your 3D reflects back and materializes differently from that dominant state. So you detach with the 3D from that choice, from that knowing of what identity you're rehearsing, what emotional state you are normalizing for yourself, and what version of yourself consciously observing internally. You don't need more proof. You need a new identity to observe. You need to bring your conscious awareness, re-choose who you are being daily. To actually live from that version of you, who chooses, who decides, who claims, instead of staring at the evidence and wondering why the change isn't happening because you haven't changed. That's exactly what we're teaching inside our brand new masterclass, Be Her Now, the art of living from its done. And all of that choice changes your nervous system into a new baseline for yourself, into a new dominant state. You are literally rewiring your subconscious and overriding your identity and refusing to let your 3D dictate who you are. So we're going to wrap up the episode there. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.